Alrighty. We should be good to go.
Oh my goodness. Are we good to go? I hope so. Oh, good. We got some of our favorites in there. Hi, KK, John, and Jen. And I think I saw there was a page sighting in there. Always great to see you guys. Mary D. Oh my gosh. Hi, everybody.
Mary says, off, buzzy, and weird. Exactly. Yeah, how many of you guys are feeling like really tingly and energized?
It does. It feels really weird, but moving up to this storm, I was getting a lot of people feeling very, very off and like, oh, good, there's Karma Doc. Yay, we got a notification. Good. A lot of people saying they felt buzzing in their feet, a lot. And I thought that was very interesting.
I think there's a wave of pineal expansion going through again. We did do, just so you know, on Patreon and members, we had a message from the Galactic Federation. If you haven't listened to it, we are going through some serious upgrades. And yeah, it's, I guess with these type of upgrades, it's natural to feel a little tingly, buzzy, off, a little disjointed. If it feels like things are a little surreal, well, yeah, again, there's major changes underway.
Indeed. So, Catch Many, good to see you. Technologically savvy, I wish I was. Great to see you. Day of the Cow. Jordan's World. Oh gosh, you guys, thanks for stopping in. So we'll do intention today that everyone is safe through the storm and that they have what they need to get them through the storm, because not everybody can get the things that they need. They might not be able to get as prepared as possible. So we'll send out that intention and do dings at the end and updates on prayers and afterwards. Oh, good, Dragon Sage. Hello, good to see you. And Jenny Pace, if I didn't already say that.
Yeah, as KK says, upgrades, but not always euphoric. Yeah, it could be disconcerting a lot. It's just par for the course. If the very ether, which gives us the elements, is changing, then everything is changing. And absolutely our perception of time-space, I think, is changing. And again, we look to not just the yogic, Vedic point of view, but the ancient Greeks too had the same sort of notion that in a golden age, humans are like the gods, just like the gods, superpowers and all. And we are now out of a Kali Yuga, even though the Kali Yuga power structure is still here. They are losing their grip. And our consciousness is changing. Everything is expanding and growing. And that is exciting. So, yeah, if you haven't turned on the news at all, yeah, there's a major winter storm that is enormous. Literally, it seems to be covering 2/3 to 3/4 of the country. Actually, you could look and see cloud cover everywhere from Arizona, all the way to New England. It's huge. Right now about 800,000 without power. Literally 10,000 plus flights canceled. The Schumann, by the way, has been pretty active. We've seen it like this before, but again, it seems to be consistently more elevated and at times doing things that are a little unusual.
I think there's a lot of things that are very unusual, especially going on with the Schumann. Those markers that were mentioned inside the Schumann, I thought were very interesting, and I felt that they were magnetic of sorts, and I feel that they were deliberate. Like, this was such a huge storm. I mean, and where we are at, gosh, I think we got around 3 inches, and out back we had this big tarp thing, and it was solid. It was, it was
Solid
heavy,
steel.
solid steel.
Poles.
Pulls, and the snow got on it and weighed it down just a little bit, because there's the really super thick tarp, and it cracked. It like just the legs broke. It was so weird, but weird things happen to us too.
Yeah, so we took a little damage with our it's like an awning in the backyard, and underneath it we had things stored. And one of our lawnmowers is like buried right now. It was the ice, because we got like 3 inches of ice accumulation. It's more ice than snow, but it looks like snow, but it's heavier than snow. And the one thing that I'm very, very grateful for is that the power has stayed on. Where we are, a lot of people don't have power. A lot of people don't have power at this point in time. Is Earth headed for a mini ice age by 2030, or will that be the dawn of a mini ice age? Of course, when we talk about this, I automatically think of our good friend Dave at Adapt 2030, David Devine. We've worked together and done lives and videos together since I think 2018, a long time. And he's a good guy. And, if you want to know more about the mini ice age and all this, I don't think there's a better person that you could listen to than David. When you look out there now, Nashville, reports are 90% of Nashville is without power. That's huge. And you can see this is just pure ice. Kind of crazy. So, again, sending prayers and positive intentions for everybody that has lost power. And, in the past, it seems like, one rumble of thunder and we would lose power at this location and our previous one that we were at. But hopefully everything stays the way it's been, and it's been a blessing. Although we did at like 2 a.m., the power bleeped off for a moment, and I was thinking, oh, great, got to go out there and fire up the generator. But it came right back on. I was so thankful for that.
I know it was really a blessing. It just blinked out for a moment, and then sometimes I feel, oh my gosh, we are just so lucky. And then I hear the next town over, they're just a lot of people out of power there, and then I kind of droop, because it's like, oh my gosh, they weren't so lucky. And really all you can do is just get yourself prepared and do everything you can yourself. If you need help, ask for help. I know some people feel like they don't want to ask for help, but if you're not able to get it going yourself for whatever reason, pick up that 100-pound phone and text somebody. I know it's hard, but do it anyway, because that's how things can go bad, is for people feeling like they can't ask for help, or it's a burden, or they're embarrassed. It doesn't really matter. Just get some help. I think that maybe that's an ego thing sometimes, because I get that way too. Oh, I can do it myself. And a lot of times I can't. I need help. So I think, that's something I need to work on too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, guys, share with us what you're seeing, where you are at. Because I think for us, as far as precipitation, we're probably 85% done with precipitation, but we're going to be way below average. This time of year, our overnight low should be like around low 40s, like maybe 42, 43, something like that. But it's going to be in the teens. So we've had water dripping all night, and we're going to keep it going. We did have our pipes 2 years ago. Was it they froze? Or, sweetie, was it?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
2 years ago. We had our pipes froze, and that was not a good situation. I know a lot of people have been through that.
Oh, I know. Silly Dilly says working on that too. And Paige, I can't afford to help. I know, but there's some really good people out there. Sometimes we just need to ask. There's good people. Karma Doc says my palm trees in Texas maybe we'll live. I hope so. And then what did they survive through that other storm we had a few years ago? Was it 3 or 4 years ago? I think we were in New Mexico. I believe you were maybe in Texas. But that was really cold. That storm stopped us from leaving where we were for like 3 or 4 weeks. We were going to go where we are now, but that storm kept us from crossing any country. That was a storm. God, 4 years ago. Time flies. It does.
You mean the big Texas one?
Big Texas one.
Yeah, when that big Texas one hit, we were in New Mexico. We were living there at the time, and I want to say it was 4 years ago. So that was during the whole lockdown thing. It's kind of crazy times. Look at it. This is what we have right now. You see the temperature. It's pretty damn cold almost everywhere. It's showing 44 in Los Angeles, 28 in Atlanta, Houston, 27, Dallas, 12 degrees, Chicago, 13. It's actually colder in Dallas than it is in Chicago right now. Isn't that kind of weird? Salt Lake City, 17, Seattle, 26. And then we get to I don't know how people could tolerate 34 below up in Winnipeg. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is really pretty crazy. If we look forward to, it's going to be cold for quite a bit. This, again, when you get this sudden stratospheric warming, that, kind of is counterintuitive, because it always leads to these real intense cold plunges. And, I don't buy what they tell us all the time. And, this from the Watchers, that stratospheric warming developing over the Arctic is forecast to weaken the polar vortex and influence February weather. So it's looking like we might have more of these big freezes coming in February. Yuck.
I know someone mentioned to me that there's already talk of another major storm development. And after our big tarp thingy had collapsed, it really got me thinking about our roofs, because they're not that strong. They're not that weak, but they could be stronger. I know a lot of places that are used to the snow, they have extra slanted roofs, or they have, some extra stuff. But around here, it's not common that this happens. So people don't really build with that in mind, which made me think of other people who could have very well had their roofs collapse last night. And boy, it was a cold night for something like that to happen.
Yeah. Mary D, I don't know how you do it, sweetie.
We don't know.
Friday, real feel temp of negative 37.
Wow.
Yeah, I in Ohio, I think I experienced 20 below, and that was just brutal. I mean, Cindy grew up right on the Idaho-Canada border, so, when she was a little one out there, it was pretty darn cold.
We were just used to our limbs being like numb. So it didn't really matter. You just get thrown outside and you play outside until it's dark time. I absolutely loved it. And I remember me and my brother and sister, we were so goofy. When we were little, we would drag our sleds up this really awful mountain, and we would just work like an hour to get up there, and it would take us like 3 minutes to slide down. We were such goofy kids, but we went back for more punishment over and over and over. But I think that's what you do when you're little. You just kind of you'll do almost anything for a couple minutes of fun.
I'm thinking that this is a good way to give you like a visualization. Let's go all the way. So this is Earth Null School, and what you see is what they're talking about. If we have one solid polar vortex, then the weather tends to be a little bit more predictable and a little bit more in line with the rest of the factors, whether we have a La Nina, El Nino, a neutral situation. With the magnetic pole decreasing and getting ready to do its flip, sometimes you get a bipolar situation, literally. And it is, yeah, the weather is a little bipolar. Well, yeah, it is. Look at it, right? So instead of one strong rotation, you get this elongation and the dipping effect, and the Arctic air can come down and hit those of us, like, say, in Texas, that's not used to having this type of temperatures, and, again, all the things that come with it. So much has to do with, and when you look at the summer, again, down below in the southern hemisphere, you see how it's pretty mild and tranquil. Yeah, this is the way it works. And then it's the exact opposite 6 months from now. They're the ones that have that polar vortex going on, and everything should be more tranquil up here. I think I'm almost surprised that more scientists, can't see, or maybe it's that they don't want to see the fact that everything about our planet's abnormal. It's abnormal. And it's not just our planet, it's other planets. Venus rotates in the opposite direction. And with Venus, if I'm remembering right, it's 1 year is shorter than 1 day. You have Uranus and some other of these planets that are tilted, extreme degrees. Our Earth runs between 21.5 degrees and 23.5 degrees as far as its tilting, and that does wobble. Again, I think in the ancient times, when we're talking Garden of Eden, there's a lot of different ways you could look at it. Some people say the Garden of Eden was actually inside inner Earth. But also, we don't have the same sort of interference with the dark matrix in other times, like the Silver and Golden Age. So things, I think, tend to be a little bit more natural. We've talked many times about the fact that there's cultures all around the world that remember when the moon wasn't there. They even remember when the moon was put in place. Curiously enough, some of those stories mentioned that it was by 2 reptilian humanoid brothers. You can't make this stuff up, guys.
I know, it's pretty interesting out there. There's a lot going on. I think our sun is doing a lot, and like on that channeling that I got, it's like they were showing me the nervous system and how the nervous system was being stripped away from old energy so that new energy could come in. So that's what makes it so important right now to take really good care of yourself and be good to yourself, because we have an opportunity to rebuild that nervous system and work through a lot of trauma so we can move a little bit higher. And when we are looking into like the Silver Age and the Golden Age, it's far more balanced. People are just, right now it seems like energy fields can really, really clash, and then you can feel it with some people. But when you get in the other ages, the Silver and the Gold Age, it's more like our energies start to balance one another out, and it becomes more of a deliberate type of energy, almost like a knee-jerk reaction. If your energy field comes into contact with someone who's out of balance, the correction is easier to be made than it is right now. Right now, I think there's just think of colors that clash. And I think that's what we have going on with people right now. And until we learn to recognize that and point it out and say, hey, wow, there's an imbalance there, and automatically want to fix it without going through other traumas, other fussing with people, it just, the energy will correct itself. And I think that's where we're headed. But it's gonna take some time and take some effort on our part. I hope I explained that well.
Yeah, thank you. Always very interesting to see these things. Again, spirituality is just science that's not fully understood yet. Again, we live in a very, very let's say mental reality. It's all about thought. And there was a group of some of the most brilliant minds that we've had in the last couple hundred years, including, people like Einstein and Max Planck and others that got together and they would philosophize about all these things. What exactly is our reality? Well, again, you go to the Hindu scriptures, the yogic scriptures, it's all just basically created by consciousness for consciousness to explore, because we are eternal beings and we can transmigrate from one vehicle to another, and that's what our bodies are. They're a vehicle for getting around in this heavy density. But, it's not the way that we normally typically are. There we go. Thank you, Awaken Lightworks. That is wonderful. We appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that a lot.
You guys are awesome, and we just love doing this. It's what we want to do, is communicate with you guys, help people understand what we're going through and what we can look forward to. Because I do think, again, it's the most exciting time you can imagine, is leaving a dark Kali Yuga and heading into a Bronze Age. It's not necessarily going to be all peaches and cream. It's not going to be, a never-ending supply of cheesecake that doesn't go on your hips. Sorry. But it is going to be so much more than we've ever thought it could be. As little kids, if you ever thought, man, I wish I lived at a time when I could see a dragon flying through the air. When, elves and gnomes and sprites and fairies, those were all real, and this is the time of myth and legend, because those myths and legends come from the Bronze Age, when our pineal glands were functioning so we could perceive things that are just a little bit outside of the visible light spectrum. We only perceive a tiny little fraction of all that is. Most of all that is, we can't see when we're in these bodies. Again, and even when we're out of body, depends on where we are. Meanwhile, Kilauea had a pretty good eruption. Lava fountains, 1,575 feet high. And again, ash and all was carried pretty high up. And, again, the big island here off of the southern coast, where, Kilauea's southeastern coast, it's going to be getting a lot bigger. These things take time, but at the same time, there are things that happen far quicker than what the system says. And, again, what we're talking about now is it likely that we're heading into another mini ice age? Because a mini ice age is way more devastating than global warming, increasing. And if they are doing all these sudden stratospheric injections and, trying to put aluminum and barium up there just to deflect the heat back out, if we're naturally going into an ice age anyway, then it's going to make it worse and more intense. And now I think there's a lot of us out there that when the control system tells us something, we believe almost the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm. I know. And someone in there saying dark is always depicted by your kind as something negative. I don't think you've really listened to us for very long, because I do speak about the darkness. We definitely need them both. They're both equally important. So there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have both. You have to, again, self-realization is the goal in the Hindu belief set. And it's not a belief set in the typical manner, again, because when we look to the word belief, it's be, and then you have that lie. And you end up with an F, maybe signifying that if we believe blindly, we're being fooled. And so, there's a lot there to uncover. But basically, we are just simply having a temporary human experience. And typically, it's common for souls to have, many human lives, perhaps hundreds, thousands, even an infinite number of human lives, but also lives as other forms of life. Because again, in that tradition, and this is also stuff that we've gotten from our guides, you could have literally a portion of a relative's soul incarnate into a pet dog to be close to you, to help you, guide you, and protect you without, coming back fully as a human and then being born as a baby human. When you think about it, do you ever feel that your dog is your best friend, or maybe it's a kitty? Well, again, they are souls just like us. They're just having a different experience in a different vehicle.
Right. And, Day of the Cow says you have to become one with your own darkness. And one thing I always say is darkness is our greatest teacher. Pain is our greatest teacher. What we perceive to be darkness is very, very important. We need the whole spectrum to move us forward. And it's our divine right to come here and explore anything that we want to explore. So it's, it's something that you can't have one without the other ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Kilauea, going at it again. Check out this. What do you pick up on this? That's a pretty interesting little circular hole. We've seen a lot of circular ships. Just saying, And then this, it's saying more alien skies overhead. Right before the latest 1 in 1,000-year storm, which we seem to get, almost every year now. So what I'm seeing is repeating patterns. Again, there is the line of thought that there's these gigantic cataclysms every 12,000 years or so, and then maybe every 6,000 years, 6,500, there's big ones. But I think it's way more than that. Way, way more than that. It would make sense if we had 4, hard transition periods, or basically a transition period between each of the yugas. That makes sense because I had no clue previously, before we got the information from the guides, that literally, again, the 4 elements, they come out of the ether, and the ether is literally changing. So our entire reality is changing. I think the thing people can understand the easiest is it's like we are literally playing a virtual reality game. And, the whole, it's like all the ground rules for this game change with the change of the yuga.
I see a lot of things. We have such a small visible spectrum right now, but when we're in other yugas, we have a much larger visible spectrum. So then we can see all the elementals. We can see many, many, many other types of beings. And right now, I think it's important to develop that perception so you are able to see in other densities. Of course, you're still going to see from your own perspective, but still you can see into other densities. But there will be a time when that's all that's going to change, and our visible spectrum is going to be much bigger. And I think that'll be a good day, so that we see that we're not really alone. And I hear people talking about, a massive sun sneeze, just a huge, huge sun sneeze, and it's going to wipe out the whole earth. But actually, when I looked at that giant sun sneeze, we don't lose anything, we actually gain. And that's the point where we start being able to see all the other dimensions around us much, much clearer.
Talk about the dark sun.
We do. And with the dark sun, there's also the dark sun, or what some people call the black sun. And what that does is that reveals a whole nother layer of light spectrum, where things look, when you get a black light and you're looking around to see if there's somebody peed in a motel room, you use your black light for that. It's going to be much like a black light, and it's going to light up things that we've never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting, guys. Meanwhile, this is what we have currently. You could see these colors right there represented. So the darker and the more red, the worse the situation. Texas, when you look at it, there's 108,000 people out. That could be a lot worse. So I really do believe that even though we're having a pretty intense situation with this storm, I know we were putting out there strongly the intention that this not be an event that takes a lot of lives, that doesn't take any lives. We don't want to see anybody lose their lives or lose their home, lose their car, whatever it is. You know, we can change the outcome. This is absolutely one of the things I want to get across. It could be that certain events are bound to happen, but how much of an impact and what type of an impact, I think that's something we can absolutely work on and have a big effect on.
Well, I love coming on here and setting the intent. I mean, that really is so very important. Our energy and our energy, our intent, and then when we put the emotion behind it, that matters. That makes a difference. That's the thing that gets people moving. And when it comes to the feeling of love, or the emotion that we call love, that's like the glue that holds our whole network together, and it's the thing that we lean on. It's the strongest form of emotion that can do the most good. So when we come in here and we're all together and we are all working together to send the energy out, that everyone has what they need in this storm, and that if their power does go out, that they have help, or something comes along and somebody just happens to be there at the right place at the right time. I mean, this is what it's all about, coming together, and I really appreciate you guys so much.
In Louisiana, you have 121,000 people out, which is 5% of the population doesn't have power. When we jump over to Mississippi, they were hit a little harder. 9.95% of the population of Mississippi is without power, and that's 145,000 people. Yeah, Mississippi is, it's, believe it or not, it's not too populous, and it has a lot of beautiful forests and woods. It's a nice state. Alabama, 0.5% of the people are without power, 13,000. And Tennessee, 8.66%. And this one seems to be rising more. So again, Nashville is hit real bad. Yeah, you see, this is Nashville area. 91% of the people don't have power. That's 185,000 people just in the Nashville area, Davidson County. So there's other areas here. Hickman County, 97% of the people don't have power. And then up here, Johnson County, just again, one customer tracked there. I guess that's a little statistical error or something. But yeah, Tennessee right now it seems to be one of the more challenging spots. Right above them in Kentucky, 75,000 people without power, 3%. And then to a lesser degree right now, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, 17,000 without power, South Carolina, 3,500, Virginia, about 12,000, and West Virginia, 21,000. West Virginia could be very challenging to drive through when they get snow in those hills. Over 10,000 flight cancellations. 10,000. The most in a single day since the plague upon the land pandemic. Wow, this is big.
It is, and I just want to talk a moment about our pets. They need us so badly, and Mike went out to feed the birds this morning, and it's like they all kind of clobbered him. They're like, give us food. Hurry, please. We're starving. We're dying. I think we've turned our birds into little drama queens. They're so beautiful. And then other family members, they feed the birds. It's so important. John and Jen.
You know, how many did we have in the front yard at that one time? I
Hundreds.
think we had maybe thousands in the
There's a
front
lot,
yards.
Yeah.
It was just, and when they took off, it was like just this, like, it was almost like a small plane.
It was so noisy. And let's keep in mind our pets. Now, our dogs are not well weathered, and their pads are not super strong. And we went out into the yard and we just walked one circle. And then I told Mike, I said, on the second one, we better stop here because our dogs don't have strong pads. And sure enough, then I see Sita lift her foot and there was a little drop of blood there. So that snow and the ice can cut your little puppy paws. So just be careful, unless there's already like a trench made, from them running back and forth. And then there are other creatures that could get very cold. Let's not forget to do what we can to break the ice so that they have water too.
Yeah, and I don't know what you call those little blackbirds with the little starling. They have the little red on their wings because we get like thousands of them coming, and they occupy the trees, and it's just wild because they're all singing together at the same time. So yeah, I'm somebody that I feed the deer, I feed the birds, I feed the possums and the raccoons, and kind of like everything, kind of like a Dr. Doolittle type of guy, I guess, if I remember right. I think that was the guy that loved the animals, right? Dr.
I think
Doolittle?
so.
Think so.
Sure.
So, yeah, absolutely crazy. U.S. declares power emergency in Texas. Actually, more than half of the states have declared emergencies situations. So, it's the expansiveness, the size of this is, I think, really unusual. It's not unusual to have intense storms, even more intense than what we've seen. But to have them that literally cover 2/3 to 3/4 of the country, that feels a little bit off.
Yeah, that's a lot. So this was such a huge storm, and it feels like it. I don't know. It feels like it just dwarfed the country, and the idea and thoughts that we could already have more in the making. That's a little bit concerning, especially for areas that are not used to this kind of weather. I mean, talk about bipolar weather. It wasn't even maybe 2.5 weeks ago. We had our AC on, so yeah. I mean, this is really wild.
Jen, as in John and Jen, she's like a saint. She's a little angel to the wildlife, and big old heart. I think again, you could tell so much of a person's character um, by the kindness they show towards the creatures. I always view the animals as the children of our mother, the Mother Earth. And, this is where we got disconnected and off kilter in our belief systems, where it's just all about the father energy. But there's no the mother. And this has been a yuga with, meaning the Kali Yuga, with no compassion. I mean, very, very little compassion. And I think, again, it's that divine feminine component coming in and balancing. We were talking earlier about, the dark side, the shadow side. And somebody was saying we're hypocrites. Again, you can't deny that everything has a dark and a light side because, again, because source, is giving us everything. And so we see the yin and the yang. It's natural, but it's all about your choice. It's like that old two wolves. You have two wolves. Which one are you going to feed? Are you going to feed the dark side or the light side? And I think this is part of what we do. We come in to test ourselves. How much are you going to go out of the way to show love, compassion, and kindness to others, especially in crazy situations like we see going on up in Minnesota? It just makes, I think, most of us nauseous to see the level of hatred and violence that's going on. It's, again, part of that split. I think we're going to get to the point where a lot of us are going to just say, I got to unplug from this system to a bigger degree because it just pulls you down.
And just doing something to better the planet a little bit more than it was when you woke up that morning. Karma Doc, she has out 15 heated cat shelters. That is very kind. I'm sure they're very, very grateful. And KK, she has one outdoor cat and two houses. And, just making the world a little bit better at the end of the day than it was when you woke up. Just a little bit. What can you do to bring a little bit of positivity to the life here on Earth? It's not just about helping people. We need to help our creatures.
Yes, absolutely. And we need to come together more and more as a group as we can. I've always thought it curious that, we have so many people that are core followers that are in different areas. And we seem to be, congregated in certain places. And there is Coma Kaneko. I hope you are staying warm up there. Yeah, 11 inches in PA. Snow drifts are exceeding 24 inches. Stay warm, brother. Again, we thank you so much for your support. And yeah, there's been so many of you that we've had sessions with over the years. And I think that's one of the things that's telling is the fact that, we do have clients that have been with us for 8 years. Yeah. Since we started doing this, as a team, and they've been there the whole time, and it just, does keep growing.
It's about, a lot of people have certain issues and they don't have regular workarounds, or a lot of people have things in their life that you can't even just simply talk to a counselor about. They can't talk to their family about. No one understands and no one can hear them. And this is where I think where people feel safe to come and say, okay, I need a little bit of help here. And then with every unique situation, there's a unique solution, and we just do our best to help people optimize themselves. I know you guys have been so wonderful. You've been our family, truly, truly have been our family through thick and thin. You've seen the good parts of us, the bad parts of us. It's kind of like that relationship that you create with people. It's like, yeah, here's my ugly parts, and yeah, here's my ugly parts, but I love you anyway. So it's about that kind of a family that we've created here. And I just absolutely love it. And we appreciate all the support.
Absolutely. We couldn't do it without you guys. This is the big freeze of 62 to 63, London streets blanketed in snow. Desperate drivers digging out buried cars during one of Britain's coldest winters. I remember it was the winter of... I wonder if there's anything in here. The winter of 78. I know Robbie's up in Massachusetts. I was in Connecticut at that time. We had 2 snowfalls back to back. I don't think I had school for over a week.
I don't know. I think the only time we were able to go without school when I lived in Idaho, this little we lived up a little town called Pine Creek. There was actually a flood, and the flood washed out the road, and that was the only time we didn't have school. Unfortunately, they were able to fix the roads by Monday. I think the flood happened on a Thursday, so we didn't have to go Thursday, Friday, but we did have to go back on Monday. Those buses came with chains and four-wheel drive, and just really strong, brave bus drivers.
So this is like how you can hear the guides wanting to share something. It's like ideas pop in your head, and recognize those conversations. Like in certain times, they would send you away to the loony bin if you're hearing voices in your head. Not in the Bronze Age, because you are able to communicate more telepathically. This is interesting. A little uncanny. The blizzard of 78 was January 25 through 27, 1978. And now Winter Storm Fern is expected the 25th again, January 25th. Different decades, same states. Well, this is talking about Ohio, but we had this in Connecticut too. Same deep winter reminder of just how powerful Mother Nature can be. It is curious to see things. There is a lot to numerology. Look at this. This is that blizzard that I'm talking about. We had 2 of them. I want to say one storm was 24 inches. The other one was 21, if I remember right. 78. Yeah, I was living in Fairfield, Connecticut. So I was like 13. I think that was the year I went and saw Kiss for the first time, and Judas Priest opened up for them.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I missed all that fun stuff. I was just, I don't know, I guess doing other life stuff.
Look at this. This is what we had. This is probably I-95, I would venture to guess, and everything is just abandoned there on the highway.
Wow.
Holy crap, that was huge, dude. I mean... Dude and dudettes, that was wild for, it's not typical. 48 years ago. Oh, wow. That was interesting. Now I'm curious to see.
And Karma Doc, good form. She says, make sure they're your own thoughts and voices. Oh my gosh, yes. That note that you sent me about the energies that come, yes, we're natural receivers and we receive information outside of ourselves. So that's proven that like all the information comes from the outside of ourselves. But don't forget, there's that other aspect of it is that it could be being sent to you by not so nice forces. So we have to keep that in mind. We might be hearing voices that absolutely are not ours. And I have to share this right now because it has me thinking and remembering some things a few years ago. We were seeing people that were getting very, very sad, and the 5G towers were going up, ironically, in those areas where these people were getting so sad and getting really, really bad thoughts. So do make sure they are belonging to you and they're not coming from another place. One way to tell is the information I feel that comes from the outside of you that is not source related is going to be very sterile. It might even be kind of mechanical. And the information that comes to you from a natural source is going to have emotion, and it's going to have some validity to it, and it's going to be somehow tied into your own energy field. But if something comes from left field, really keep an eye on that. But just, just to be safe, keep an eye on all of it. So it's like they've really convoluted everything around us to such a high degree that we just need to always be cautious.
Yeah, so I remembered, so I guess there was a blizzard on the 25th, and then the other one hit on February 5th. So, they were close together, like 11 days apart. And, in some areas, Boston, 27 inches of snow, Providence, Rhode Island, 27, Atlantic City, 20. It's just huge. I think Bridgeport had 27. Bridgeport's the town next to the town I was living in. Just wild times, which gets us thinking about the mini ice age. In the last 3,000 years, there were 3 periods of global cooling. The Little Ice Age, about 1300 AD, late Antique Little Ice Age, 536 AD, and the Iron Age Cold Epoch, about 900 BC. Scientists expect a grand solar minimum between 2030 and 2040 with the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field and slowdown of the ocean currents. It's going to be devastating. Well, we'll have to see. Again, I think our consciousness plays a big part in that. When we look at the other minimums, the Spore minimum, that was 1440 to 1460. The Maunder minimum, 1687 to 1703, and the Dalton minimum, 1809 to 1821. I look at these dates and think in terms of a little bit bigger resets. Not the biggest of the resets, but significant resets that we go through. 1809, 1821, we were talking maybe about 4 or 5 lives ago about Napoleon, the War of 1812. That's right in the middle of that period. So I started noticing these patterns where these things were all tied together. Big catastrophic wars with what appears to be horrible earth changes, natural catastrophes happening at the same time. And, wondering how much of it has to do with our collective consciousness, and if we are feeling traumatized, a lot of negative thoughts and vibes, are we actually manifesting that into the earth itself? Or is it part of that, but part of something else, like a bigger purpose, a technology being used as well to create conditions that makes it tougher for us to live in?
I know, and you guys are all so funny talking about the snow Karma Dog says it's like rolled up styrofoam. And Jen says, I remember as a child we would make ice cream with the snow. No way now. And Robbie and his comment with yellow snow. Always leave it to Robbie to get a laugh. And yeah, no, I wouldn't eat the snow now. I remember in Idaho it was just so crystal clear. If the snow melted, the water was clear. And if it melts now in a bucket or a bin or whatever, it's like full of all this junk. And then I did have a family member send me where she had melted the snow and it looked like burnt styrofoam. It was not normal. I mean, isn't that sad that we kind of live that way right now? I don't think Earth is without her ways to cleanse, though.
Okay, so now we're going full bore woo woo. Look at this. What do you see here? When we watch this, ice walls. Aren't there ice walls? Yeah, there's ice walls. Yeah, like we were saying, this is going full bore woo woo. But what's interesting is that Cindy has gotten from the guides and she's seen. When she scans, like she remote views, what does she see? She sees something similar to this. Now, these images are what Yuri Gagarin, he was a famous cosmonaut, Russian astronaut, what he saw when he ventured into outer space. After this discovery, it was decided that all flights into space would be classified as top secret. Our park is one of thousands of nests. Above each park, its own sun shines, and at night its own stars are visible. Oh, again, we get into that whole dome thing, the ice wall, the dome. And, again, sometimes people will think, well, they're not aliens because they've been here, but they could also be aliens that came here a long time ago and still have been here. Remember that old biblical phrase, a day is as if 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years but a day. If we lived a lifespan that they say we do live in a golden age, which is 100,000 years, that's pretty much an immortal compared to what we're used to, then yeah, absolutely. 100,000 years, that's a long period of time. So think about beings that may have come here, 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, or maybe their, predecessors came generations ago and stayed. And, planet Earth, the great experiment, has been ongoing for a long time. So what is our reality? Again, this is taking that whole thought of an ice wall, separating each of these realities one from another. Oh, that's some interesting stuff, is it not?
So this was helpful for me to see because this was very much like what I saw, except for I didn't see the octagons. I saw just rings, just regular rings. And the reason why the math doesn't add up when we're talking about round Earth, flat Earth is because Earth is simply much, much bigger than it holds many different worlds. So, and it's not flat like a table. So I did write down a little bit of stuff. So imagine Earth as a radio tower broadcasting many stations at once. All stations occupy a space, do not interfere with each other, are accessed by tuning. So you don't necessarily have to travel to another station. You simply receive a different signal. So that's kind of what I've been seeing. It's just really difficult to put into words. So one station might contain ancient ecosystems. Another one contains worlds similar to our own. Another contains high vibrational beings with lighter forms. And humans are tuned in to one station by default. And these days, we're able to move into different stations if we so choose. So in music, the same note repeats at higher or lower octaves. This is just, the lower octaves, they they contain denser matter, slower change, heavy biological forms, and strong survival themes. Whereas middle octaves, they are physical matter, time-bound societies, growth through challenge, and this is where I feel humanity currently resides. And then the higher octaves is less dense matter, faster coherence, beings organized by harmony rather than survival. So, I mean, everyone is right, but we just can't let, the earth is flat, the earth is round, make us so angry at each other that we block each other and, spit venom at each other because you're right. No, I'm right. Well, we can all be right.
So, yeah, this is a great idea and representation. Right? You see, these are hexagons, right? And, it's been said, like David Icke believes, and others too, that Saturn sends the signals to the moon. And the moon does what it does, I guess, amplifies processes and sends energy to maintain the control grid on planet Earth. Well, when you think about it, Saturn's got a hexagon, doesn't it? Right. It has the big storm that never goes away. What type of storm lasts, this long and has straight lines? It's, again, this is definitely a misrepresentation of what's going on. So what if Saturn is sending out the pattern of that hexagon that then is replicated on Earth, giving us these realities?
Right. And, since there is a signal, Karma Doc says, I've thought they change our reality by signal override. Absolutely. And putting in with all the 5G towers and all the things, and that makes so much sense to me, and just kind of like holding us here in this place where we have to be in a state of survival, and naturally we should be moving up in octaves and going to a newer, better area, but they keep us in this dense 5D, shoot us up with graphene, and make sure that we remain in this dense nature. Now, here's the thing we can choose. We can choose to be kind to each other. We can choose to do the right thing by our neighbor. We can choose to bite our tongue when it's appropriate. And just, if someone's having a moment, let them have a moment. But, we can also choose to not bring harm to each other. But maybe we could very well be stuck with all the mRNA and the graphene, and we're just like anchored here. So that makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, see, this is why it's so fun to talk about these things with you guys when we're doing the live. Was it Robbie that said Sun Simulator? And it gets me thinking about this Planet X News and oh gosh, what was our friend's name that? It wasn't Wormwood, Planet Wormwood. No, it was Steve. I can't remember the name of
Steve.
Our friend Steve that used to do this, and we did lives with him. No, I don't think he was feeling good about the energy from uncovering these things. So here again, you see this hexagonal type of shape. The NASA Sun Simulator. Oh man, I think we're starting to really get a better, clearer representation of what's going on. As above, so below, right? So, again, here's these patterns. And we were started out talking about the polar vortex and the weakening of the polar vortex. Let me ask Cindy, if I say that the weakening of the polar vortex and everything is literally, is it coming from Saturn, the programming, or coming from the moon, the programming to literally influence our weather?
All of the planets, what I get is all of the planets are working equally to try to balance each other. But if we do have a planet that is out of balance and deliberately being held out of balance, that can cause us problems. And I think that's where we are at now. So there's a lot of things out there that are way beyond our ability to perceive when it comes to technologies, things that, we might not be able to believe ourselves, that because they are so big. But I think we're dealing with beings that are probably thousands of years ahead of us. So yes, they can do these things. But then I also see, like when I say that, I also see the other planets coming in and trying to rebalance each other, because they are beings that are on a much higher octave, and that's what they naturally want to do, is they naturally want to balance. So I would say we're probably in a little bit of a pickle, but it's not to say that we can't get out of it, because guess what? Nature finds a way. They can go ahead and put cement over a field, but there's always that one dandelion that breaks through, isn't it? There's that one dandelion that breaks through, and it starts moving on up, and it makes way for other dandelions. And I think that's where positivity and supporting each other and helping each other where we can, I think that's where, the love is. And I think that's where love is, like, you can see it as the glue that holds everything together. It's in us.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating when we look at all this. It really, really is. Again, Saturn is even thought to be the sun of a different age. Maybe the planets, again, the planets we understand they're alive. Each one of them is a consciousness. In fact, everything is really alive. I really don't think there's anything that's inanimate, because that which we call an inanimate object, like you might say this table's inanimate, but at the same time, it's ultimately made up of, the same materials, quarks, and all these subatomic particles that are making up everything. And they're just basically waiting for our consciousness to bring about a form. But this is interesting. Again, this is like centering on Bermuda here, and putting the dimensional box, the hexagram, over it. Saturn is Chronos. Chronos is time, and Chronos is a Titan according to the mythology. But we understand that space-time is part of one continuum. And when we're outside of this physical reality, then, the laws of space-time no longer apply. But again, is our reality being projected from Saturn? Saturn and, Saturday, Sabbath, again, Satan, Santa, all the symbology. I mean, it just goes on forever, really, all the symbolism.
And star forts versus hexagons, really interesting, Karma, when you say that. The word that I see and hear is communication. So there's some type of communications there, on the earthly grid. So that's really very interesting how all of this does definitely come together. It's just with the human mind. I don't think the human mind itself alone is able to pull it together. We're not made to pull it together. But when we work together like this, then we can start throwing a lot of fun stuff out there.
Oh, yeah. And this is where you make a lot more progress, too. Semantics. And we look to Dr. Emoto and his experiments with water. We can see the shapes of these star forts, right? And, we're going to see very similar shapes.
Yeah. And then we get to this grid of communication. I think communication is what it's all about. If that's what the world is made up of. I mean, we're always in communication with our surroundings, but can you do things and make things to amplify that communication and amplify your body? Absolutely. I think these things were made for harmonics to optimize the human body, and we're just now learning about it. That's what Mike and I do every day. We're optimizing our harmonics so that we can have the best communication possible with whatever we're trying to communicate with. And you cannot put a limit on that. Earth is extremely intelligent, and luckily we have the ability to harness the way she does things to optimize our bodies. And I feel that these star forts and also a lot of the Tartarian buildings, that's what kept us from aging.
They're all over the world. You can see like different locations where they are. They're all over the world, and they're holding patterns, energies, helping. Again, I think that they're located on ley lines, which are nadis. Nadis are energy line centers that we have in our body. And this is part of the microcosm and the macrocosms. Yeah, absolutely. These are ancient texts for holding frequencies and bringing beneficial frequencies in. If we see these designs, right, and we understand that, like, literally putting words written into on a glass, like love, etc., peace, tape it to a glass, the water starts to take on the characteristics of the word, the intention behind the word, the energy of the word. And this is what the star forts are doing. They're putting positive energies into the earth itself.
Right. And if we're 70% plus water, well, the words that we speak, the music that we listen to, those frequencies that we can and cannot hear, that is changing our body. It's changing our blood. It's changing everything about us. And this was probably the thing that really catapulted my awakening, was Dr. Emoto's work here. As soon as I realized that, and then I stopped and I thought a minute. So every thought that I have, every word that I say, that's affecting me personally. And this is where disease can come from. It can come from our thoughts and our words and our actions and our emotions. And that's why I think it's deliberately set up for people to really be hard on themselves, or be mean to other people, or fight, or have a lot of angst toward one another. This world is set up to, you got to choose a side, is what the mainstream says. It's either this or it's that, and that's just to keep us fighting and keep us going at each other, and that's just not very nice.
72,000 nadis of the body. Yeah, acupuncture points. These lay along the ley lines of the human body. So when you study traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, you'll learn at least where the major meridians are, and then go about to start to memorize, all the key points that you possibly can memorize. When we look at, these. This is, again, very, very similar. And this is, again, showing the Ida and the Pingala and the Sushumna. So where these cross, that's where the major chakras are. And, again, the chakras are literally dimensional vortices. They're portals to other dimensions, again, for our consciousness. And you can work on sending your consciousness out of different chakras. You can work in energy work, learn how to gather and send energy from, say, the palm chakra. But you could also do it from your third eye to somebody else's third eye. This is part of the deeper knowing and studies, stuff that we're very much into, as Reiki master teachers, Qigong practitioners for like decades. I've always found this very, very fascinating. And yet, the nadis in the human body, we have ley lines in the earth's body. And, they are related.
This is that fun stuff, as above, so below. And if you look at the chakras, who's to say a lot of those star forts are not in the form of a specific chakra emitting a particular type of energy, because obviously our crown chakra is going to have a different vibe than our solar plexus and our throat from our sacral, So, of course, they would make beings that have a lot more understanding would be able to have the know-how and the ability to make buildings of this nature to help optimize the human body.
So, yeah, Earth has ley lines all around it. And this is where we find most of the sacred objects. This is where we find, all the different amazing places, like Teotihuacan and Stonehenge and all these other memorials, in a sense, to our ancestors who are sending us messages into the future, hoping that we'll figure out what they're trying to tell us. And really, they're telling us about the different yugas is really what they're getting down to. So, again, we could tap into these natural energies. What's fascinating, too, is in astrology, you can also find where your natural ley lines are for different things. Like you could find where would I do best in business? Where would I have the most chance at a successful partnership? Where would I experience the best health? Because you could find this too astrologically in your charts. But I think what Cindy's been doing lately is looking at the Varshafala chart, which gives you extreme detail to the year, and what's going to happen for the individual for the whole year. It's like extremely detailed. And it's just amazing because we've done quite a few Varshafala charts, and they are just like mind-blowingly accurate. But again, it's a representation of our higher selves, and we may be looking at our higher selves every night when we look out at the stars.
I think so. There's the matrix. This is our natural matrix that we should be in. And I think because of the way we live, we are no longer in these Tatarian buildings and the star forts. We're no longer around the very, very positive energy that could be here. And this is what gives us disease and the angst and the stress and the struggle. But I do enjoy these Varshafala charts because if, let's say, for example, it's not about predicting anything, but if there is something bad that looks like it's going to be coming in for the year, at least you know what you need to do to counter that. And it gives you an idea of how the energy needs to flow for you to optimize that particular year. But this should just be common knowledge. It should be one of those things that, again, you start learning in kindergarten. We should all be able to read the stars, all of us. And it's just, unfortunately, that only falls in, like, not everyone is interested, but we should have like a basic idea of how to do it, just like we have a basic idea of the alphabet. You don't have to specialize in it, but you at least need to know the basics. And I think we should all just be born with that ability and then have it cultivated inside of us.
Yeah, Robbie wanted us to look at bastion forts. This is stuff that's just fun and fascinating, So when we start really getting into and you can see everybody in chat, you guys know. I mean, we pick up little bits here and there, and like, oh, okay, well, I didn't think about that part of this yet. But this is the reality. Like, we are learning so quickly now. Just imagine where we're going to be 100 years from now. And, they've been suppressing all this. It's been suppressed all of our lives, but now it's just like a flood that they can't stop. It's a tsunami of knowledge coming out into the masses.
Silly Dilly wants you to check if there's one in New Jersey. I bet you there is. Where...
Starford?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what she means. But, where we're at, we learned that we are near these mounds that we had no idea how they're everywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere. And there's so many of them, and how we ended up right smack in the middle of like Mound Central is pretty wild. And then we learned, now we didn't put this house here, the people before us did, but we learned that this house was actually placed on a mound. And, you know, we're very respectful to the land. We are anyway, always have been, but that just added a little more desire to be even a little more respectful, because the neighbor was telling us when they were doing the yard, they would actually walk through our yard and find arrowheads in our yard. And then a couple of lives ago, Sita says hi, by the way. A couple of lives ago, Mike walked outside and he looked down, and you know, there's half of an arrowhead just sitting right there. I mean, this world is wild.
Well, we can see they're down there, you know, right by the bridges going across into New Jersey. Fort J, Fort Wood, Fort Hamilton. So yeah, there's star forts all over the place. You know, I think they were needed to help the earth heal again. The earth is constructed from the biggest part of Tiamat, and yet the earth that we don't know about is much more vast than what we've been told. Much, much more vast. It's far larger. So it's fascinating to see this. You know, it's so fascinating to see this. And then if you go into Kings and Chronicles in the Bible, who is it that is sending all the chaos, all the weather, you know, the plagues and the famine? It's literally, again, it's the ones we would call the Anunnaki, or sometimes Satan and quote unquote God, having arguments over, you know, who or how much man would, you know, curse either of them per se, like in the book of Job and all. So it makes you really think about, again, we have a natural matrix, and then we have an artificial matrix that's run by those beings that we call the archons. When you look at these worlds, sweetie, who is it? The natural matrix that's running these alternate realities, and not the dark matrix that's hijacked our particular one?
Well, if I understood you right, this was built upon the natural matrix, and it was continually built on the natural matrix until the darkness came, and then they wanted to make sure we didn't have that ability to use the energy of these star forts, of these shapes, so that they could control us with disease, and that they would know all the pieces, they would have all the things. So Karma Doc wants me to throw out dates. I don't know. I like the date 2/22, but you guys, that would be fun. Get together. Sita won't let me go. She just won't let me go. But you guys get together. I mean, it sounds like a brilliant idea and a wonderful idea, and that's why we come together. We come together for this stuff.
Think about bees in honeycombs, right? So when you look at that, you almost get the impression that we're kind of in a honeycomb.
Yeah.
You know, again, there is a fractal nature to our reality. Recognize that fractal nature is part of the organic universe. So I thought that was fascinating, guys, and it's always fun to go down these rabbit holes. It's always fun to go down and do a little sledding.
Yeah, everyone can go down to a local star fort to their state. I think with us, it would have to be maybe one of the mountains. But yeah, I mean, if we could drive down there, and the babies might be okay. But I love all of these ideas. I am going to have to, Sita says it is lunchtime. So I don't know. We might have to do dings and head out of here, but it's been a lot of fun.
She's getting hungry. By the way, Poverty Point, we did a video there. It's really a fascinating place. This is the largest one of its kind in the Americas, and it's gigantic, and you can still see this was a gathering center. People came here from all over, and literally where we are right now is not far from this. So yeah, we have mounds related to this, literally on our street. And it was a gathering center for good reasons, trade. It was kind of like, think of it as a farmer's market, but also a spiritual resource center where people came at different solstices and, they just celebrated life together. But what Cindy saw there was literally kind of the Day of the Lord situation where these beings, the ones that we would call the Elohim from the Bible, the Anunnaki again, they literally came and scattered people, just like the Tower of Babel incident, everywhere. They terrified them with their ships coming in down low, and people took off and ran for cover because it was just a terrifying thing.
It was a really horrible division I saw. I didn't want to look for too long, but they were very confused. It was very dark. It was just really something that shouldn't happen to any being, and I think that's a really good way to describe it. The Day of the Lord, yes, it is terrifying, but now we understand and we know technology a lot better, and we know what that really means.
Yeah, it's just simply beings that have more technology than we do and more understanding of how the universe works. And Cindy's going to give us some dings because Sita is looking for lunch.
She knows what time it is here. Thanks, you guys, for your support. All of you for your support and your participation in chat. This is what makes it real. So we want to say a huge thank you to Koma Kaneko and Awakened Light Worker Soul. Thank you so much for helping us sponsor today's video. And let's also hold the intent, like we have been, that people, if they need help, they get help. And here we go. And that they're okay and safe through the storms. So here we go.
Absolutely. And while we have that thought, as I always say, Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu, may all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may my thoughts, words, actions, and deeds contribute to that happiness. Can we also envision the earth? See the earth before you. See a wave of violet light sweeping through the earth. And this violet light is removing all the vestiges of the darkness. It's lifting everybody up closer and in better alignment with their higher selves and with the heavenly angelic realms that are out there cheering us on. And again, we want to thank you guys so much for being a part of the family with us. But let's just hold that thought for a moment. If Sita could hold her hunger there. And again, Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. And much love, guys. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It was a lot of fun. I love going off on tangents.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.